Welcome to another edition of Success Talk. This is Dr. Herbert Harris, and each week we bring you interviews with people who have accomplished incredible things, but also who have faced odds and challenges and yet have been able to overcome those challenges and make a breakthrough. So today we have one of my good friends, Dr. Craig Wright, out of Baltimore, Maryland. Doc, welcome to Success Talk.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you for having me.
Well, I enjoy, talking to, I'll call it spiritual people, people who are on the path that, there's that path of enlightenment. And so many people talk about it, but very few people actually walk the path and talk the talk. So thank you so much for being with me, being with us, because I greatly admire the work you've done.
Well, thank you for having me once again. Thank you.
But Doc, tell us a little about your early years, your childhood, because to end up in this place with a doctorate in metaphysics and doing the things you're doing, that must have been a long journey.
Yes, it was. I guess my start with working with numbers and metaphysics started before I was even aware of it in junior high school in seventh grade. I got very good grades in math and science, and my parents decided they were going to have an engineer in the family.
Mm,
So every course they could direct me to try to give me an edge mathematically, they made sure I was exposed to it. My mom was a teacher, so I was never out of school.
right.
But something happened on my path to becoming an engineer. Um, at 21 years old, junior in college, my best friend transitioned through a drug overdose.
Ooh,
And I wasn't even aware, doctor, that he was using. So that told me a lot about myself. I was very self-absorbed. I felt like I wasn't paying attention to what was going on around me. I should have been able to do something to prevent that from happening. So that event made me start to question why I was here, what was the meaning of life, why was my friend gone, and what was my purpose. If it was going to be like this, I did not want to be here. So that really put me in a state of yearning, of wanting to know. And in this consciousness, this mental attitude I heard a song on WEAA, it's a jazz radio station by Roy Ayers. And that song was called In Search of the Third Eye. It's on his LP, Everybody Loves the Sunshine. He's throwing a
mm-hmm,
lemon up in the sky.
mm-hmm, yes.
Well, when I heard the lyrics to that song, Doctor, it was secrets of numbers, secrets of sound, secrets of wisdom can be found. And that's what I was looking for. I wanted some answers. So I went out, I bought that album. And this was in the late 70s, 78, 79. I
Yes.
read the cover, and the person who wrote this song had read a book called In Search of the Third Eye. There was a lady by the name of Vera Stanley Alder. It took me 2 years to get a copy of that book. There was no Amazon, no huge book distributors. Basically, I willed it into my experience just from
Mm,
wanting to find it. I went to every bookstore I could find, and one day I went into a store and they had
wow. Well,
it.
Roy, is Roy still alive?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. I was talking with his manager um, maybe a couple weeks ago. Um,
Okay. Well, when we complete this, I want to connect up because I know Roy, he lived up in near Columbia on Riverside
okay.
Drive. And so we were good friends. And then his lawyer was Ashley Andrews, who went to college with me. And so,
Awesome.
yeah, so we all go back a long ways. And I kind of lost, well, I left New York, in the 90s. And, New York,
Okay.
once you leave, you lose all your contacts and, it's hard to keep up. Yeah, but we'll talk about that. That's good. So that took you on the path of numerology then and
Yes,
astrology.
it did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I started to read the book that she had written, and it opened a whole new world to me. I had always worked with figures. If I hold up a pen and I say, I have one pen. That's a
Mm,
figure, a
mm,
quantity.
mm-hmm.
But numerology taught me that numbers also reveal qualities. For example, if I say big pens are number one, I'm no longer talking about a quantity, but a quality of being the best. So this
Yes.
opened my eyes to understanding numbers at a whole nother level, doctor. It revealed the qualities of spirit that I possess. I became my first client.
Yes.
And through that understanding, I've been able to help others who are also seeking who they are, why they're here, and their purpose in life.
Mm. Who they are, why they're here, and their purpose in life. That's the quest. that's, that's the journey, you know. Uh, Herman Hesse wrote a book, Siddhartha. Siddhartha,
Yes.
yes, one of my favorite books. And Siddhartha was on that journey, on that quest to find who he was, what he was about, and what his purpose was. So that's I think today, Doc, I'm finding more and more people are looking into their purpose. And I think this pandemic, being compelled to be by yourself, you know, when
Yes.
people got cut off a lot from the external world, they had an opportunity to get to know themselves in ways that they had never done before. And
That's
so I
very
think
true.
it opened a whole new world. And I think that's a part of this whole revolution that's happening, that many people who spent some time with themselves are now finding that there's more to who they are than they thought there was.
Who
Wow.
knew, right? Surprise,
Yeah.
surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. Now, a question. So there's the vibration, the everything in the universe has a corresponding energy vibration. So a thought has a vibration. And so a number has a vibration. Uh-huh. And so how does it relate to when you say the number? Have you ever seen that experiment where a fellow had two glasses of rice, and one glass of rice, it was cooked rice. He said good things like, I love you, you're beautiful, I love you, the good rice. And the other, he said, you're mean, I hate you. And over a period of a week, the one rice, the hated rice was shriveled up and dark, and the loved rice was pretty much well preserved. Is there such a vibrational relationship with numbers and how you say it?
Yes, it is. And that relationship is the same as when you go to a radio dial. If you're looking for a TV station, you tune in to that number and you're expecting a certain program to come from it. So, for example, if you're looking at the number one, we expect leadership to come from that. It's a vibration and energy. And the example that you were referring to, I hadn't heard about that one, but I heard about a similar one with water, and someone spoke positive words over water and negative words, and the water started to get polluted.
Mm,
So energy and vibrations are very, very real. We are experiencing, whether we're aware of it or not, the law of attraction every day. um, I got an opportunity to display the law of attraction when I was working for the federal government. I was a benefit authorizer for
mm,
Social Security Administration. And it was the practice of the day to bundle cases in tins. So
mhm.
you would go up and get a bundle and bring it back to your desk. Well, if I was angry and upset, I would grab a bundle and I'll be working that bundle all day. It was that difficult. But if I kept a positive frame of mind and it was very upbeat, it transcended to the cases that I was picking up. And I
Mm,
started to manifest more cases that anyone else had ever done in the organization. And it was all because I was thinking positively. They wanted us to produce 10 cases a day. I was knocking out 20 or 25 a day.
wow.
And
Wow.
I owed it all to recognizing the energy that we possess. It's
Mm,
very empowering when we realize the energy is inside of us, we don't have to respond. We can be proactive.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of basic stimulus response thinking, we can begin to create and produce what we want to have in our lives.
Wow. Now, it's like one of those, some people call it one of the secret of the ages, but that's what certain people have known for years and years. You know? Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's starting to be rebirth. It's the information is coming back, I think, because as you put it, people are spending more time in quiet, solitude, reflecting, and it's from that process we connect with the energy that we have within us, and
Yes.
it produces um, an awakening, a
Yes.
whole nother way of viewing life. There are fewer people now who are willing to stay on a job they hate just to pay the bills. I
Yes.
turn on the TV set and they say there's 10,000 job openings and people are quitting their jobs every day.
Yes. Yes.
People are awakening.
Yeah. This is really the Great Awakening. Yeah, this period, and the pandemic helped bring it about because we can be so involved with dealing with the external world that we don't even look at how we are, how we are internally. And many times we're so busy, as my friend used to say, you're so busy fighting the alligators that you don't have time to drain the swamp. Yeah.
Very well put.
Yeah. So now you made a transition. You had a real job, working with the government, but at some point you made a decision to really move into the numerology, the that whole spiritual realm, pretty much on a committed basis. Yeah.
Yes, I
What was that
did.
process? What was that process like?
Well, I tell you, doctor, once I discovered that there was a power inside of me, um, and that I didn't have to be dependent on the outside world,
Yes.
I started walking on water and jumping off the top of buildings. It
Yeah.
eliminated fear and doubt.
Mm-hmm.
It eliminated my fear and doubt. Now, the people around me, it didn't eliminate their fear and doubt. People, relationships I had, the jobs I had, everything changed when I did because
Mm.
the outside world is always in harmony with our inner state. So when I began
Woo.
to seek peace and solitude and wanting to express the gifts that I had been given through the study of numerology, opportunities started to come my way to allow me to do that and to reach out not to everyone at that time. And this is back in the late 70s when if you went to the library, there were no books on numerology.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
actually, after I found the book in the bookstore and read the bibliography, I actually had to go to the Library of Congress to read those books.
Wow.
Luckily, it was only a 40-minute drive from where I
Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
But instead of going to work, I'd go to the Library of Congress, spend 8 hours a day there because you couldn't take the books out of
Right.
the
Right.
Library of Congress.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had to
Wow.
stay there and read it. So I was studying all about numerology. I went to Pythagoras, who most people are familiar with through geometry. The
Yes.
study of Pythagoras led me to Egypt
Yes.
because there was a point in his life when his parents told him, "We've taught you everything we can." He was Greek. "We've
Uh-huh.
taught you everything we can. You've got to go study with the masters in Egypt."
Yes.
So
Yes.
everyone was going to Africa to get their knowledge, the insight about spirituality, medicine, numbers, and but they used the oral tradition in
Yes.
Egypt.
Yes.
So after 20 years of study, he went back to Greece and started to write about the stuff he had learned, and they started a religion named after him, Pythagorism.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you ask the Europeans, they give the Greeks the credit for this wisdom. But if you ask the Greeks, they give the Africans credit because they know that's where they went to study
Yes.
in the
Well,
halls of Luxor Temple.
Luxor Temple. Well, I've been to Luxor, and I
Awesome.
studied. yeah, I studied with Dr. Ben. Are you familiar with Dr. Ben Yohanan?
Yes, the medicine man.
Yes, that was, I went there with Egypt. I went to Egypt with
Wow.
Dr. Ben. And so we would go in the mornings, we would go and see the different temples. So the temple at Luxor, Abydos, the Abu Simbel. We got there at midnight. You know, that place is so popular. They have people coming in 24 hours a day to see Abu Simbel.
Mm.
We went down into, of course, Cairo and the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. And as a matter of fact, the whole astrological signs, that we see the circle, that's in the top of a temple at Abydos. And the only difference is the way the Egyptians did it, the sun comes out of the woman's vagina and makes the journey across the sky, and then it returns into her mouth and goes through her body and
Okay.
comes out again. And so what the Western world took all the symbols, very much the same signs you have in the wheel, just took the woman out. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
and
amazing.
yeah, and when you get there, you learn, Herodotus, the great Greek historian, came to Egypt to study, 900 BC. The Greeks, Alexander the Great ruled Egypt for a while, and there was a whole series of Greek kings, what they call the Hyksos kings, from about 335 on up through the birth of till the Romans took over around the Christian era. And the
Mhm.
Greeks and the Egyptians were very close. The Egyptians agreed to be conquered by the Greeks because the Greeks had such respect for their knowledge and for their learning and for their education.
Yes,
Herodotus wrote about the Great Pyramid in Cairo. He said the thing was covered with gold. And when I've actually been in King Tut's tomb and at
awesome.
the Valley of the Kings. When you see that, you go like, my God, and all the pictures up there are black folks, because Egypt is in Africa. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting because so few of us know what you've just said. So few of us have had a chance to visit. I think a part of the whole American paradigm is, and that's what troubles me about taking knowledge out of the school system, is that they think that black people came, grew out of slavery and bondage, where thousands of years before white people, knew anything, black people were building pyramids. You go
That's
to
correct.
the Step Pyramid built over 5,000 years ago. Yeah. Or
That's right.
you go into one of the temples there, the pharaonic listing has a listing of every pharaoh, his birth name and his pharaonic name for 2,500 years. Okay,
Awesome.
which means they've been keeping records. you know, so that's
That's right.
a tale for another day. But in making that transition, from what you were doing to the spiritual path, did you experience resistance from like people closest to you?
Well, yes, I did. I don't know if I would call it resistance as much as fear, um, confusion. This was quite a major transition that I was going through. Um, right down to people thinking what I was doing was demonic or evil.
Ooh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I had an experience. I went to a church and I was talking to the pastor about this wonderful experience I was having, how God had taken the blinders off of my eyes and allowed me to see into what Moses meant when he said, "Teach us to number our days, so we
Uh-huh.
can apply our hearts to wisdom." Psalms 90, verse 12. Why Jesus was changing the names of his disciples. They were all students.
Yes.
The next Sunday, I went back to church. That same pastor who sat there nodding his head and smiling at me, gave a sermon about the evils of numerology.
Ooh. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
So
Wow.
after that experience, I was in seminary at that time. I left the seminary, I stopped going there, and it took me maybe another 8 to 10 years before I discovered a metaphysical university. The University of Metaphysics, that's what it's called.
Yes.
And I had found my tribe. I found where I belong.
Yes. 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 Well, I have so much respect for that institution, man. And how long did you study there?
I studied there. I got an undergraduate degree.
Uh-huh.
I got a master's degree, and ultimately my PhD. And I did it all in like 5 years.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful, man, because when you can go to an institution where people teach this type of higher learning, just like they teach mathematics. In the traditional education, many people see it's like hocus pocus, and they'll even call you a root worker if they're really ignorant. Okay. So, but when you can really be in an environment where you can learn this type of stuff, where it's normal, where
Yes.
this is the course of action, the course of instruction. That must be one great experience.
Yes, it was. I really felt really enthused by it, motivated by it. There were many times along the way I was asked at universe, why did you introduce this to me? Why'd you tell me about this? And the answer I would get back, doctor, was just be ready when I send you my leaders.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
universe wanted me to stop complaining, but study, read, get prepared. And over time, people who needed this information found me.
Okay.
They would find me. And I tried making this like a regular business, advertising and promoting. Nothing happens. Nothing
Yes.
happens. But when it's time, the right people find me. I was blessed to be able to speak about numerology at Princeton, an Ivy
Mm,
League school. They wanted
yes.
someone to come up and talk about African heritage.
Yes.
So
Wow.
I could not have made that happen in 100 years. So
Right. 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 Well, once again, the vibration, there's a vibration of need and a vibration of clarity. And when a lot of times people don't even know what they need, but their vibrations tells them. So stuff comes into their lives not because they were seeking it, but because they need to know. Hmm.
awesome.
Wow.
You are so right. You are
Yeah.
so right. Um, and that's looking at that from a perspective of other people saying, what did he say?
Hmm.
You've heard people if people are listening of the Christian persuasion, you heard them say, well, he chose me first.
Yes.
He chose me, I didn't chose him. Well, that's
Uh-huh.
exactly what you just expressed metaphysically. The
Yes.
energy that we send out attracts, like attracts like.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
also works with the water, how the water went bad and the rice went bad. If
Yes.
you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, fear, doubt, I'm convinced cancer comes from unforgiveness.
Ooh.
I'm really convinced the metaphysical reason for it. People who just can't let go. They fight karma, and all the world religions tell us real life like a loose garment. If you get slapped, turn the other cheek. And they teach us that we're meeting ourselves in our life experience. So you're really forgiving yourself. Forgiveness is for us. It's not for the person who did something wrong for us.
Yes.
And if we're unable to release that energy, the person who's done it, they go on about their lives. They don't even think about it.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
But we're holding it in. So
Man.
very,
Yeah.
very important to be able to release and stay positive. Extremely
Woo.
important.
Yes. Yes. Man. This type of information, this type of conversation, many people are looking for it now. As I feel led by, the vibrations that, you know, penetrate my being, I'm preparing a way now. It's funny, you said the people who need you are finding you. I'm preparing a way now for people to come preparing my studio now for people to come, almost like an oasis. Like I'm not coming out, you come, because they come, just their coming is a certain surrender of their ego.
Yeah, exactly. Which
Hmm.
indicates now they're ready to receive the information.
Yes.
You know, it's impossible if you're ego driven. It's the seeds won't grow. That's like seeds on rocky soil.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not
Yes.
going to grow.
Yes.
So just as a farmer breaks up the soil before he plants, that negative self-image and that ego-driven self has to be broken before you can start to have that new growth, that new experience
Yes.
in
Yes.
your life.
Wow. Wow. Mm. In this path that you're on now, what, what are some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome? Maybe one or two to move to the beingness that you have now.
Well, I found my greatest obstacle were were within the obstacles were within me.
Okay.
I was afraid of how people would respond.
Uh-huh.
Um, I had self-doubt as to whether this information was really going to help people or not. So those were the obstacles. What will they think? What will people say? You know?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
um,
Wow.
but the universe was persistent with me and just kept manifesting evidence right before my eyes that this new information I was receiving was not only true, but it was improving my life and
Uh-huh.
it changed my vibration. So people were starting to understand I knew something that they didn't.
Mm.
And I don't know how else to put it. They were drawn to me for answers.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
they were drawn to me for answers. I got a chance to be on a radio show. This is when my professional career was launched in 1988. I was
Uh-huh.
on a show by Reverend Hazel Cassell, and she was a metaphysician. She had a radio show here in Baltimore. And she had found out about some guy giving people readings about numbers and invited me to be a guest on her show.
Mm.
Well, now whenever I'm a guest on the show, I expect the host to give out my information. But this was the first time I'd ever done a radio show, and I was shocked. She gave out my phone number, said, if you want to get readings and forecasts from Craig Wright, give him a call. I didn't have any readings. I didn't have any services that I was offering. I didn't have any products. I
Uh-huh.
was just fascinated by this information and glad to have an opportunity to share it on her show. So I had to really get busy formulating these products. So my business grew from the demand. People said, well, I want to read it. Tell me all about myself.
Uh-huh.
Everything, name and numbers. So I had to come up with something. So I
Yes.
created advanced reading, an introductory reading, a combination reading. Also, I created a forecast, different services, compatibility work, and
Hmm.
just plain old ordinary consultations. People just
Yeah.
want to call and talk sometimes.
Yes.
And I get a lot of business people who consult with me before they rent a building, real estate agents before they'll buy a house. They want to know the energy of the house. I have artists who give events and showings. They consult me about the date, the best month, when they should act. So it's a lot of applications
Yes.
for this, but most of the information is from self concept.
Mm.
Who are
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Who are you? Why are you here? My parents told me I was going to be an engineer. They wanted the best for me. They
Yes.
saw engineering succeeding in life.
Yes.
But now I'm building bridges from the spiritual world to the material world. They had no idea that's how it was going to end up.
Yes.
But the numbers definitely played a vital role. So thanks, mom and dad. I'm building bridges.
Yes. Yes. Well, when you talked about that fear of stepping out, how am I going to
Yeah,
make money? What will people think? That's a major prison for so many people, man. They get stuck there and never get out. I mean, a lot of times I've seen people live an entire life based on somebody else's expectations. Yeah.
exactly.
So that was
Exactly.
that was powerful. Now, when you talked a moment about self-doubt. How did you handle that self-doubt that you had when you were starting out?
Well, I came to situations where, just to use a metaphor, a person was drowning
Mm-hmm.
and I had to throw them. I felt compelled. I had to throw them a life raft. I
Uh-huh.
had to get it out to them. And when I found out when people were drowning, they didn't care where the life raft came from. They just wanted to grab onto it and hold it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
most people didn't even come back and say thank you. They said, "Oh, good, I can survive. I can keep going." But that's how the word got out over time. That this guy had some information that was really helping people. So I got over my self doubt really from helping people and having them come back and say, "Thank you, thank you
Mhm.
so much for telling me this. Thank you for helping my daughter."
Yeah.
Thank you for helping my son. We weren't sure what we were going to do. Thank you for explaining to me this person isn't ignorant. This person isn't a troublemaker. They are absorbing information at a faster rate than the students around them. So now I can move my son out of this environment and put him in an advanced situation where they can use his skills. So instead of him ending up in jail or being labeled a troublemaker and a boat rocker, now his skills are being appreciated. So
Wow.
that's been very fulfilling. And after some feedback like that, Doc, I didn't care about the naysayers anymore,
Yes.
And
Yes.
once it left my mind, um, I I got less resistance
Yes.
because my doubt and fears were bringing the
Mm.
resistance into my experience. I was
Woo.
creating walls for myself.
Woo.
It's
Not,
like
not.
Job
Yes.
said.
Yes.
Job said, "My fear has
Has
come
come
upon
upon
me."
me. The things that I have feared have come upon me. And now that's deep. And for our listeners, that's something to really focus on, because when you let fear rule, fear will, if you let it rule, it will rule. And it will
That's it,
create a
right.
vibration that attracts everything that's like fear into itself, unto
And
your
it
life.
becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Prophecy.
See, I told you so,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and people don't realize they're creating that experience for themselves, but they're pointing outside themselves, blaming other people and saying, "I told you that's the way it was." And woe unto those who believe what they say, because they'll just create the same experiences in their life, and it
Yeah.
perpetuates. You were
Yeah.
right. You were
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where prejudice comes from,
Uh-huh.
you know. Um,
Yeah.
but also we tie ourselves up in a box and prevent our own growth
Yes.
and development.
And that's really the challenge, because we box ourselves in by choice. Yeah. Yeah. Man, this that's something that I think our listeners, and I know when people hear this, there's going to be that person who's saying, if somebody had just confirmed my value, everybody needs that confirmation, and not necessarily the confirmation to go forward, but just the confirmation that helps you become more steadfast in your mission. That that
Yes.
that I think there was a quote, and it says, you know, he who is unafraid, only a fool is unafraid, but a wise man is not overcome by fear. And so
Yes.
it's the fear will manifest. Fear is a lot like weeds, in a garden. Nobody has to plant weeds. You never have to like, I'm gonna go out and plant some weeds. You never have to plant weeds, but weeds
And
will
it's
grow.
plentiful.
Yeah, yeah. But to maintain the integrity and the beauty of your garden, you have to pull up the weeds. And the same thing, those negative feelings, that self-doubt will crop up, and we have to pull it out. And one of the things that helps us is when somebody confirms the value of what we've given and what we've shared with them. I mean it. And for
That's
our
so very
listeners,
true.
yeah. And for our listeners,
That's
someone
so
who's
very
helped
true.
you, someone who's given you just that little piece of advice, that little instruction, that little uh, whatever, that little something of value. confirm the person. Let them know, say, you know what? Thank you so much. We did an experiment, a coach I had, and the lesson was to ask 100 people to give me $100. No questions asked. And we broke it up in by race, by economic status. We laid out a list. And I'll tell you, Doc, the people who had the least often gave the most. The people
Wow,
who had the
that's amazing.
most often gave the least.
That's
And
amazing.
and one person, and you see, we couldn't tell them at the end of the experiment, of the lesson, we sent back the money with 20% interest. And it was amazing. And what I found was that the people who gave from their hearts, and the one person had to give in pieces. And when I called him back and I said, well, here, I'm gonna send you $120. He said, you don't have to do that. And I just did it because I value what you're saying. I was like, I get it, but this was my payback. This was my wraparound. And
Yeah.
it was such a revealing, experiment, because many people that I was for sure would say yes, said no. And so many wondered it was not just a no, it was a no with an explanation. you know, you know, it was a very interesting
Mhm.
thing. And so for our listeners, if there's somebody who's helped you, who's given you some value, confirm it. Let them know it. Let them know how you've helped them, because believe me, it will help you to do that. Because sometimes we think we did it ourselves, but it was that man or that woman that opened the door that, said, hey, open the windows, you know, do this, do that, or do the other. Wow. Mm.
That's correct.
Now, Doc, when you're on this kind of path and you sort of, I guess you develop a new set of friends, or a new tribe. Is that
Yes,
kind of
you do.
natural? Yeah. Is that kind of natural? Was that hard to look at the people who were really not compatible with the new you, and how you handled that, how you had to deal with that?
Yes, it was. In fact, that was part of the test. That was
Okay.
part of the test. Would I respond to the outer world expectations, old friends? Like you said, people want you to be a certain way. They're used to you playing a certain role in their life. So as you begin to change, you're not the same person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So what that does was that began to separate me from the people and the desires that I had, my goals, my entire life switched it and changed. My value system was turned upside down, if you will.
Mm.
And as a result of that, I started to certain people started to distance themselves from me. And
Mm-hmm.
on closer realization, I realized those people weren't my friends.
Yes.
Um, those people like me for different reasons. The role I could play in their life, what I could do for them. Um, and what I found out was I was led to more meaningful relationships. And it was a reflection of my growth.
Uh-huh.
It's a reflection of the growth. I had a very interesting experience when I was in eighth grade.
Uh-huh.
My science teacher held up a tuning fork and said, Wright, come here and watch this. Held up a
Uh-huh.
tuning fork. I didn't
Yes.
know it, but he had another one behind him, and he struck the one behind him and brought it beside the one that was standing still, and it started to vibrate at the same rate
Right.
that the one
Right.
he had struck.
Yes.
So from that, I realized the energy of the people around me was affecting my life.
Wow. Say
That
that
energy
again.
was that
Say that
the
again, Doc.
energy of the people, the energy of the people around me was affecting my life.
Okay.
their values, what they believe in. And I think we see that. I live in Baltimore, Maryland, which is known for its crime rate. And I think we're starting to see that energy in our young people is starting to spread. Their values, their belief system is starting to spread. And we really need some type of intervention to awaken them to what's within, to the spiritual side of life.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah.
and I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but I'm putting it out there in the universe, and I'm expressing my willingness to be a part of that. If there's a project going on that's looking to accomplish that, to change the energy, change the vibration, insert some positivity in the situation, I'm all for that. I
Yes.
learned a long time ago, and you experienced the same thing I did. When we had Kennedy in the White House and King on the street, along with Malcolm X, we were seeing a lot of progress
Yes.
in terms of um, growth, opportunities, um, scholarships. But pop, 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 they were all three gone.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And that taught me the true battlefield of the revolution is within. It's
Yes.
not outside here.
Yes.
Doesn't matter who's in the White House or who's lecturing on the streets. It's the heart. It's
Yes.
the heart and mind. That's the true value of the revolution. And that's where I decided I was going to put my focus by
Yes.
trying to reach people on that inner level, on the spiritual level, to awaken them to a larger realization that we are all one.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We're all one. We're all on the same path, have the same desires, have the same challenges. And I was able to help them when I realized the numbers in our birthday reveal our gifts, talents, skills, and abilities.
Wow.
And the letters in our name reveal how we have chosen, okay, to use those gifts.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Metaphysically speaking, Doc, we are not physical beings who have an occasional spiritual moment.
Hmm.
We are spiritual beings having a temporary physical expression.
Yes. Absolutely. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Yes. Wow.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Wright, when you talk about the world now, when we understand the vibrations and the law of vibration and attraction and manifestation, the world is in a critical space. And when we look at the children, this generation is the seeds for the next generation. And this generation has seen so many weeds, so much violence, so many lies. They have seen, many of them don't even have a concept of what it's like to have a peaceful meeting. Used to go to a school board meeting, kids would come and, it was a meeting of ideas. And now people are there threatening one another, coming with masks. In our town, what's that group? The Proud Boys are permitted to come to the school board meeting with masks on, with their faces covered. And so,
Oh my goodness.
oh yeah, and the sheriff said he's not going to, arrest them. So it's
That's
like,
a throwback to the hoods, isn't it?
yes, it is. It
The
is.
sheets.
Yeah. And so, when we look at this type of vibration that's being created now, it I've been to Egypt, Israel also, and I was in the valley of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the one thing that fascinated me about that valley, it was like basically a flat. It's almost like the earth had opened up, kind of like, the Palisades of New Jersey, you know,
Okay.
like the stone and like the earth had opened up. It was flat, but everything that was raised, every mound of rocks, every hill of dirt was burned, was molten, like something from above had burned it. And so I think
Wow.
that there are times in the world where the vibration, this vibration of distrust, this vibration of confrontation, of fighting, of killing. Once again, the law of attraction is operating on a much higher level. Okay. And so many times when you read many of the holy books, you'll see allegories, but they are representatives of how energy changes can take place on a universal level. So the Sodom and Gomorrah, biblically says they had become so wicked that they had to be destroyed. But when we look at the world we have right now, there's got to be some type of equivalent going on.
Yes, yes. Sodom and Gomorrah. We hear about the lost island of Atlantis,
Yes,
you know.
yes,
So
yes,
it's like mankind has been on this brink, the brink of destruction. Um, but we were promised that wouldn't happen again. But we were told the world will be changed by fire, by
yes.
fire. And my interpretation of that is not a nuclear bomb blast, but the Kundalini fire that
Mm,
is going up the spine into awaken higher levels of consciousness through our chakras.
yes.
That's the fire I think is going to change the world. And I was both disgusted as everyone else was by the summers that we've had with all the loss, encouraged when all across the world people were saying Black Lives Matters in Europe and in France and Germany, all across the world.
Uh-huh.
There was an awakening
Yes,
to what was going on, this consciousness raising effect. And that encouraged me to say, well, there's hope for the world yet.
yes,
You know, there's
yes,
there's hope for the world yet.
yes, yes.
So I do believe the world that we live in is going to be destroyed by fire, but that fire is going to be the Kundalini fire, which
Uh,
for those who that may sound strange to, is
yes,
an evolutionary
yes,
process that
yes,
awakens mankind to their spiritual heritage. That's why the
yes.
master taught these and greater things will you do,
Really, you
because
do.
we are all on a path of unfoldment, reaching a higher state and a higher level of consciousness. I couldn't have had this conversation 20 years ago.
Right, 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 right,
People would
right.
have rushed in and sent me to the emergency room.
Yes, yeah. Hurry up, call they don't know who to call, the FBI, the fire department, or the crazy house. Well, as you were talking, the chakras, the alignment of the chakras, where all this spiritual alignment, I think that's where we're headed now. And those of us who are aware and tuned in can understand this alignment as a source of that power to survive and to move through all of this. Mm,
Yes,
wow.
yes. I firmly believe that there's
Yeah.
an awakening going on. We used to listen to people singing about the dawning of the age of
Of
Aquarius
Aquarius.
when I
Yes.
was in my teens, in my 20s. Well, now it's here.
It's here. It's right on here. Wow. Well, Doc, I tell you, this has been an incredible interview. I have a couple more questions. Uh, what do you think is your greatest victory now? Your greatest accomplishment to date?
Wow. Um, I think my greatest accomplishment was in my children, but if we're talking about specifically numerology, I'd have to say my greatest accomplishment was when I was invited to lecture at Princeton,
Mm,
an
yes.
Ivy League school, little black boy from the hood
Yes. Yes.
who discovered, this truth. No one came to me, doctor, and said, read this.
Right.
I heard a song on the radio and traced that song to a book, and from there to the Library of Congress. So I think
Yes.
my greatest accomplishment was sitting in the halls of an Ivy League school with scholars all around,
Wow.
listening and taking notes and absorbing this information about the secret of numbers. because it's
Ooh,
out there. It's all over the place. It's
yes,
everywhere. Once you take the blinders off, you begin to realize, even in the holy text, the Quran, the
yes,
Bhagavad Gita,
yes,
information about numbers is contained there because, as you said earlier, people were studying numbers 5,000 years ago.
yes, yes.
So the people who wrote this wisdom literature, they knew about numerology, they knew about numbers. So it's ingrained in those writings.
Ooh, my goodness, my goodness. Wow, that's profound. That's
He
profound.
told me to turn it on so he could see me.
That's profound. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we got it, so we'll be able to share it with them. We got you. Yeah. Now, Doc, if you one of the things you've gone such a long journey from, you know, the prognostication that you're going to be an engineer, you know, to having a doctorate from the School of Metaphysics. If you look back on your life, look back on, the college years, maybe those younger years, what advice would you give your younger self about now that you're here at this point in the journey? What advice would you give your younger self?
Wow, that's an interesting question because I think everything happened the way it was supposed to.
Mm,
Um, if I could, if I could take this wisdom, this knowledge, and go back and tell my younger self something, I don't know if I would have grown. It's like you have to lift the weights to build the muscles.
mm, yes.
That's the only way. That's the only way I could put it. I had to go through the trauma. I had to go through those obstacles, which I believe I picked and I chose them.
Okay.
If I go back to my younger self and I go back to my belief that I am a spiritual entity, I made these choices. I made these decisions. I formed the contract with the universe before I had this experience so that I could grow, learn, and develop and
Yes.
share this information once I got here. Like the prophet Jeremiah, each of us
Yes.
has a contract before we're
Yes.
formed in the womb.
Yes.
We have an
Yes.
agreement with the universe.
Yes.
So,
Woo! Doc, I use my metaphysical Bible and dictionary that is so critical to really see. When I was traveling in the Holy Land, my teacher was a great Hebrew and biblical scholar. And one of the things that gave life to it was that we were actually at the Sea of Galilee. We were dangling our feet in the water. We were actually in the Garden of Gethsemane, actually looking at the walls of Jerusalem, in Beersheba, the still Valley of Sodom and Gomorrah. To actually see that these places existed gave the Bible another level of validity and the message. And so when we think about those type of things, as you were sharing with Jeremiah, that the deal is cut before you ever born, you know. they, and if you can be congruent with that vibration in which the deal was cut, then you can have an incredible life. And when I look at the allegory of the Garden of Eden, that man has that power to choose. And when we
yes,
combine that with the yin yang perspective, so we can choose wrong. It's
that's right.
amazing. Birds never get lost. They can travel 5,000 miles and end up in the very same place they started from.
Amazing, amazing.
Where we need 3 GPSs. and and if our mind won't listen, we'll still end up in the wrong place.
Yeah, we've lost that inner connection,
Yeah,
that inner guidance that
yeah.
that they have.
Well, two thoughts. Number one, where do you see the next steps? Where does Dr. Craig Wright's next journey? What is the destination, the promised land that you're moving toward now?
Well, I'm seeking to make numerology out to different churches, reaching out to universities, and also reaching out to organizations that work with young people, youth. My belief is if I can share this information, I can help people get over their spiritual amnesia. Like you said, the deal was set before we get here,
Uh-huh.
but part of being here is spiritual amnesia. We
Mm-hmm.
forget those promises we made and we have to reawaken. So I'm trying to be someone on the path that's here to tap people on the shoulder and remind them, hey, wait a minute, you came here for a reason. Don't pay any attention to all the distractions out there, all
Yes.
the noise and the confusion that's going to be very loud. Those are distractions. The voice you want to listen to is not going to scream or holler. It's going to be a quiet, still voice. So you're going to have to spend, as people did during the pandemic, some time alone,
Uh-huh.
quiet,
Yeah.
listening.
Yes.
So that's how I see myself, just being a messenger, trying
Uh-huh.
to facilitate giving back in the same manner in which I receive.
Wow. And you know, numerology being taught in the schools and in the universities as another tool of enlightenment. It's not hocus pocus. You know, people can formulate ideas out of fear of, the unknown. When they don't know something, they can demonize it so that everybody else is afraid of it. So, and that's a lofty
Exactly.
mission. Yes. I guess my last question is when you look at that journey that you're on now, of bringing this knowledge, this presence into a larger segment of the world, what advice would your older self give your present self about this journey?
Let's see. My older self would say, nobody cares. My older self would say, why are you embarrassing us this way?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
My older self would not be involved in even trying to expend love into the community because my older self wanted to join the Air Force or the Navy, fly jets, and drop
Uh-huh.
bombs and strike. I thought that was just going to be so cool to fight for my country.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Destruction. That was
Wow.
my older self. That was the path I was on. And engineering translated into flying aircraft, which translated into death and destruction.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm glad that I wasn't vibrating that way because my new self understands I probably would have brought death and destruction into my own life by vibrating that way, by
Vibrating
harmonizing
that way.
that way. Because
Yeah.
by when I was in the sixth grade, Doc, I got the same book out of the library 10 times because I could tell you every aircraft the Navy had, their armament, their range, whether they had cannons or machine guns. I mean, I was really into it.
Yes. 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 Yes.
But part of my path was to have a good friend who decided he was going to give his life
Hmm.
to wake me up. And that's
Yeah.
how I interpreted that drug overdose.
Wow.
There's
Wow.
no greater love.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
no greater love that a friend give their life.
Mm.
Um, and
Wow.
so that's how I looked at it. I said
Uh-huh.
it was not going to be in vain.
Yes.
I was going to change.
Yes. Yes. Wow. Ooh. Yes. Well, Dr. Craig Wright, you have truly shared some powerful information. I think that many people are going to be healed by this. Any final words or final thoughts as we wrap up?
Well, I just want to invite people if you've heard something that you like, if you want to get more information about your numbers, your name, your calling, your gifts, get in touch with me. My website is www.craigiewright.com. CRAIGEWRIGHT.com.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Dr. Wright, yeah, we'll post that on here. And so that's the best way to communicate with you. Excellent. Okay. Well, my friend, thank you so much for being with us today. I think that you have shared a completely different perspective, a path that many of us have thought about, but very few have actually undertaken and made the sacrifice. I know at times there was a sacrifice to go where you were going, but
You know what I liken it to, Doc? The
yes.
story of the ugly duckling. Remember the
Mm,
ugly duckling?
mm-hmm.
He was with a family of ducks, but they
Uh-huh.
realized there was something different about him. So
Yes.
there was a time he had to spend alone by himself, and then he started to meet the other swans.
Wow.
So I consider you a swan on my path.
Wow. Wow. Well,
I
thank you so
finally
much.
made it to that period of alonement and made it to like mind where I can share this information. So I thank you for letting my voice be heard.
Well, thank you, Dr. Craig Wright. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. We're going to do some more interviews together because there's so many levels of knowledge. And as they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. There are a lot of students out there that are ready. Thank God now for the internet because it gives us a way to touch people in a way that was not available on the physical plane. There's a that level of
Yes.
vibrational communication that doesn't need anything. Doesn't need internet, doesn't need satellite, doesn't need anything. But the internet and the satellite are very helpful tools to help us get to that vibrational level. And so for our listeners, this is an interview I think you'll want to listen to 2 or 3 times because there's a lot of rich conversation here and rich ideas. And also, there's some of you out here that are in this same place, that there's something calling you inside. There's a vibration inside saying, do this, go here. Cast off your shackles, cast off the negative thinking, cast off the negative people because there's a growth inside you that wants to come out. And Dr. Wright has truly inspired, I think, all of us to know that we can be what we want to be, do what we want to do, and have anything we desire, always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is.